Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review. This movie is a action film from South Korea, Korean language English subs, released in the year 2017, directed by Byung-gil, and this film is called The Villainess. So The Villainess is about this woman. She's grown up in this organisation that specialises in training assassins. So this young girl has learnt the art of sword fighting, hand-to-hand combat and shooting guns, and that she's a lethal weapon. So she ends up getting a development with this other man in this organisation, and they have a child together when she's older. So the child is an adorable little girl, and this woman wants a better life for her. So she decides that she wants to try and leave. Now, ultimately, the rules are, if you want to leave, the girls have to get a vocation, whether it's cooking or whatever. They have to try and blend with the outside world, and they also have to accomplish a mission. They have to show that they're willing to actually go the extra length to assassinate someone for their freedom. So this woman does this, and so she takes her young daughter, and now she makes a living through theatre work. She's a theatre actress, and so she's going about her business, and then she finds out that her neighbour has a strong connection with her, and she starts to believe that, okay, this is the opportunity to really move on with her life. But then she realises that the organisation is not finished with her, and they commit an act of betrayal that puts everybody's life in grave danger, which infuriates this woman to a point of wanting to exact revenge on the organisation that's taught her everything. So whether or not she can is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on The Villainess. I thought this was an incredible action film, but having said that, it doesn't come without its problems, so it's not the classic that a lot of people are making it out to be, but I thought it was an incredibly enjoyable experience, and on top of that, you do have a little bit of extra emotion to really contribute to the magnifying force that the film has. So this is a movie that's very unrealistic, and action movies don't need to be realistic, because if it's unrealistic and very far-fetched, it gives the movie a lot more fun. And a lot of other movies, such as Arnold Schwarzenegger movies in the 80s, they were all like this. Commando, Terminator, all these movies that were unrealistic, but something you can really lay back, turn off your brain, and really enjoy what was going on. And so The Villainess really reminded me of those films, in that you don't have to have any real, you have a suspension of disbelief, and that suspension of disbelief gives you that caricature nature that the film has, and that caricature nature really matches some of the scenes that the movie really excels in. And where the movie excels is in the choreography and the action set pieces, especially the first scene. There's a motorbike scene, and there's also a scene in a bus that I thought were absolutely mind-blowingly phenomenal, and worth the price of admission just for those scenes. And so as far as an action movie is concerned, this is being compared to Kill Bill, it's being compared to The Raid, and I think it's actually up there with The Raid as far as action is concerned. I think it's better than Kill Bill, because the choreography is so frenetic that you feel like you have to catch your breath after watching it. And so I do have a few of the problems with the continuity of the film, but ultimately this is an action movie, and it does deliver everything that it promises. I thought the choreography was phenomenal. It was a very brutal film, and you've got a soundtrack in there that really magnifies the emotion that the film carries. I thought the acting in this movie was fantastic. I wasn't expecting the emotion that actually comes out in the actual storyline, is that it's very convoluted, and that's ultimately a problem I have, is that the convoluted story does get in the way of the enjoyment to some extent, but once you get a grip of what's going on, it gives you a bit of an added bonus that you actually care for this assassin. This is a movie that reminded me of La Femme Nikita, where you've got the traditional sort of woman who is not doing traditional female things. This is a female empowerment film, is that they did wrong by this woman, and this woman is going to fight back, and that she's a lot stronger than everyone gives her credit for. And so you really root for this woman, and at the same time you really hope that she can get her adorable daughter and make a better life for herself. But at the same time, it shows you that your past can always catch up to you. You can't outrun your past. You can run as much as you want, but ultimately you can't hide. You're going to have to face your demons. And I thought when she actually does that, there is a little bit of emotion there, because the villains in this film were once her friends. And so it shows you the very dishonest life that this woman was leading, and that she was trying to kid herself that she was getting into a better life, but ultimately it was leading to tragedy. And I thought the end of the film really summed up what that sense of tragedy was. And so I thought, okay, the story in this movie actually paid tribute to a fan of this specific genre, is that it felt like a movie that had a strong plan, and it wasn't being lazy. So it wasn't just cashing in off its really good action set pieces, and so that's something I appreciated the most. So the action set pieces, especially at the start of the film, reminded me of the first person shooter that was Hardcore Henry, and Hardcore Henry, it really did take that, as I said, that video game aspect, and I thought the video game aspect in The Villainess created that caricature nature to a point where I felt as though I was watching a comic book, or I was watching something that it was a superhero that was doing all of these things, but at the same time, that superhero is grounded in the realism of the relationships that she has. So I thought that was great, and as I said, the villains, who were once her friends, I thought there was a strong sense of tragedy once everything comes together, and once the double, crossing comes about. I thought, okay, well, this is actually quite emotional. And so the soundtrack, I thought, was one of the biggest characters in the film, and with a lot of other South Korean films, the South Koreans really know how to put a soundtrack in to magnify that aspect of emotion. And so I thought that was very well done. The production is fantastic. Cinematography, there's a few quirky scenes in this film that I thought was very good, and it was told through flashbacks as well. And so this is where I ultimately have a problem with the film, is that I thought it was a little bit too convoluted. Once you actually get a grip of what's going on, it does become a lot more clear. But unfortunately, there were moments in the film where I was left scratching my head thinking, is this a flashback or is this current day? And what's going on here? What's going on there? So I felt as though for the majority of the film I was a little bit behind, and I wasn't enjoying the movie as it was going. So it was there. I thought that the movie didn't have to be as complicated as it actually was. And so, as I said, once you get a grip of what's going on and what these people, who these people are, and what they're doing to each other, it's a lot better. But at the start of the film, I just thought it was a little bit muddled up. It was a little bit confused, and so that's something I didn't like as much. And I thought that some of the action scenes, although they were absolutely frenetic and absolutely phenomenal, they were a little bit out of place. Is that the way it was shot? I thought, okay, well, the rest of the film wasn't shot the same way, and so I thought I'm watching a different film. Is that the action scenes didn't really connect with the overall story and the overall film as much as I really wanted to. So I can appreciate the fact that the director is trying something a little bit different, but I just thought that was a little bit disjointed and a little bit out of place. And although it doesn't derail the experience, it still felt as though there were parts in this movie that were disjointed. The continuity wasn't as fluent as I really wanted it to be. There were some scenes where it was a little bit, there's a lot of talking, and once again, the overall tone of the film was a little bit inconsistent, to, especially in the middle of this of the movie, and so that does create a little bit of a problem as well. But ultimately, it's still a very, very good action film. The action sequences are worth the price of admission alone, and as a result of that, as far as action movies are concerned, it is phenomenal, and I'm going to give this movie 4 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.